Good morning, everyone. Welcome to After Further Review here on this Monday, another Victory Monday for the Cleveland Browns. I'm Dave DeNatale. Jay Crawford is always joining me. And Jay, the Browns are 8-3. Here's the significance that I just...
Wait, what? Hold on. What did you just say?
8-3. Eight, is there, yeah. It's like, hello, is this thing on? Hello?
You mean 3 and 8?
No. Actually, 8-3. It's the flip side.
Unbelievable! I can't believe it.
This is insane. The Browns, for the first time in 13 years, are guaranteed to have a non-losing season. One more win, you have a winning season. Forget how they're doing it. We'll look at this Jacksonville game and start getting ready for the big one coming up against the Titans. But there is something to be said for a team that figures out how to win despite whatever obstacles are in front of them, i.e. with the Browns. I mean, you talk all the time about a defense needing to have, your stalwart defensive lineman, linebacker, and guy in the secondary. Well, two of those guys weren't able to play yesterday, and the Browns still were able to win.
I was a lot more concerned about this game than a lot of the people that I heard talking about it on local radio. It seemed like a lot of people were still just dismissing Jacksonville because of their 1-9 record. But when you look at the pieces that we had out, we had a starter in the front, in the middle, and in the back. Harrison goes out early with the shoulder. And it was obvious right away that I don't care who the quarterback was for Jacksonville, they were going to be able to move it against the Browns, and they did. And my fear was that the Browns were going to have zero margin for error. They were going to have to pretty much score every time they touched the football. And when you fumble the opening play of the second half, you immediately start doing the math and thinking, if Jacksonville gets a touchdown here, you're going to be behind the 8 ball the rest of the game. And that's pretty much what happened. No room for error. How they pulled it out, despite the fact that the officials were doing everything in their power to keep the Browns from winning the game, or at least from covering. I mean, you can make a strong argument someone important had the points, because it was just incredible to me how the two spot debacles, the measurement debacle, the phantom holding calls on Treader, the leading with the helmet call. I've seen 30 plays this season, far more egregious. And at real speed, no one would stand up and yell, "Oh, that's definitely going to be a penalty." And that's a walk-off sack, essentially. That's a walk-off sack. That's the equivalent of throwing a flag on pass interference on a Hail Mary, because the game's over. Right. If the Browns force the Jags to turn over on downs there, the game's over. So, yeah, this team is missing half of its starters on defense. They are battling the officials, and somehow they end up pulling out a victory. It's really incredible. And all of these close games are only going to help them when they get in a close game that's meaningful later this year. And hopefully that's the case. But you take your win. You don't apologize. You don't make excuses for losses. And I love Kevin Stefanski's, and he's been consistent on this all year. And I think the players have bought into it. What do you think, Coach, being 8-3? We're just trying to go 1-0. That's it. And that's how you have to play it. Leave it to the media and the fans to, sort of extrapolate the wins and losses as we look at the schedule. Because we've been saying forever, the way the schedule plays out, they're going to be 10-6. We first started thinking that after the Steelers loss, when you started saying, okay, where are the wins, where are the losses? It's either going to be 10-6 or 11-5. And that's still what it's going to be. But the players and the coaching staff are very focused on one thing, 1-0. Next up, Tennessee, not going to be an easy game. Tennessee had some hiccups a couple of weeks ago, but they very much look like the dominant team that we know them to be. And then you got to follow that up with a Ravens team that by then should be full strength. And, if you're assigning wins and losses like we like to do, and you're going to play the Vegas odds, and clearly the Browns will be the underdog in the Tennessee game, And depending on what happens, most likely the underdog in the Baltimore game. They've got a previous meeting this year, and it was a 32-point spread. So you start looking at that, and now all of a sudden 8-3 is 8-5 with the back-to-backs at New York's. Should be wins, but the Giants are going to have, that's going to be a meaningful game for the Giants, who, despite the fact they're 4-7, they're leading the NFC East. So that's not going to be an easy game. It's just not. You can't lose one of those two and try to make the playoffs, because then you've got to find a way to beat one of either Tennessee, Baltimore, or Pittsburgh. And unless Pittsburgh stubs their toe and doesn't bring 15-0 into week 16 against the Browns, they're going to play everybody. Yep. So, it's you got to hold serve. And if they can find a way to beat either Tennessee or Baltimore, I think they punch their tickets to the playoffs. I do. Yeah,
I would agree. Yeah, the problem is you lose to one of the New York teams, then you're in that stretch where you have to hope that, the Raiders lose. You have to hope that the Ravens lose. And you have to, you're the team that has all those scenarios. And I hate being that team. I don't like to rely on other teams and scoreboard watch. I want to punch my ticket myself.
Couldn't agree more. And, they do that by, like I said, the formula is simple right now. The formula is get a victory against one of the three good teams and sweep the New York teams, and you're in. And I think that's, you'd be hard-pressed to convince me that if you reach 11 wins, you're not going to make the playoffs. They're in this year if they get to 11. And so the pathway to that is beat the two New Yorks and then come up with a win in one of the other three games. Here's the thing, though. I think if the Browns defense is back to full strength, they should be against Baltimore. I'm not going to say it's a dice roll. I think Baltimore's clearly the better football team. But I also think that if those teams played 10 times, I think the Browns could win 2 or 3. So maybe one of those wins will be, on the day that we actually meet. So you just kind of hold your breath, take your chances, and see where you are. But I can tell you this, it's going to be a fun last 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah, and it's been a long time since, we've looked at December and looked forward to it and not been looking forward to the draft. I mean, this is nice. This is a nice feeling to have. I thought yesterday, Jay, we were reminded that Jarvis Landry, when he's healthy, is a top flight wide receiver. And I think he's been hurt with the ribs, and certainly the weather at First Energy Stadium the last couple of weeks was not favorable to a passing game. But it was a nice reminder yesterday how good Jarvis Landry is.
And I really think, Dino, that he was looking at this game as, how when you go outside 6 days in a row and it's rainy and cloudy, rainy and cloudy, rainy and cloudy, rainy and cloudy, then you wake up on that 7th day and it's sunny and warm and beautiful, that kind of energy that you get. I think that's what we saw with Jarvis Landry yesterday. I think Jarvis, like you said, the last 5 Sundays in Cleveland, 3 of them, the Browns hosted games, and the weather was abysmal. We had sleet. We had 40-mile-an-hour winds for 2 of those games, and we had driving rain in the one last week. The other 2 Sundays out of the last 5 in Cleveland, we had 78 a couple of weeks ago when they were off, and we had a beautiful day yesterday, and they weren't home. So it's just like, wow, this is crazy the way the schedule has sort of thrown the Browns this horrible weather. But I'll tell you, when you flip the calendar and you're playing football in January, it's likely going to be like that. So it's a great little dry run for the, pardon the pun, anything but a dry run, but it's a great little dress rehearsal for the Browns to get ready for those windy, cold, snowy, rainy days that you see so often in January. So I think Jarvis woke up and he said, wow, warm, sunny, Florida, let's go. And I think a couple of things are at play. You mentioned the ribs. First of all, I think let's go back to the beginning of the season. Remember, his timetable to come back from the hip surgery, he kind of shattered that mold. He came back, I think probably, and he would admit this now, a little too soon. So he wasn't full strength to start the season. Then he loses his running mate with the knee. Yeah. Then you've got the bad weather and the bad weather and the bad weather. what was stunning to me is here we are in week 11. And if you had told me $1 million bet, the Browns will be 8-3 after week 11, but Jarvis Landry would have just caught his first touchdown pass, and Odell Beckham would have been out for the majority of the season with the knee, I would have let it all ride. Take it all. Yep. I'll make that $1 million bet because the calculus doesn't add up to this team being 8-3 when you've had the contributions from Jarvis that you have had, which, he was clutch yesterday, but the season production from a touchdown standpoint just hasn't been there. So get him going, keep the running back tandem going. And I think, right now, the way the playoffs look, Dino, they would play the Bills. I'll take that matchup.
Me too.
I'll take that matchup.
Yep. I wouldn't have a problem with that as going up there for a first round matchup. That's fine. Give me that. I think the Browns match up well with them. What can you say? We've said so much about Nick Chubb this year, but he had another standout performance. And, there was the sequence when the Browns got that touchdown in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. Chubb had a 29-yard run, and then Kareem Hunt had a 27-yard run. And I'm like, this is nice. This is nice.
Yeah. Well, Dino, we've talked about their formula to win, and their formula has been sort of grind them into the dirt the first 2 or 3 quarters, soften up the underbelly of that defense, and suddenly those safeties peeking their heads up to get some action don't feel so confident in wrapping up a Chubb or a Hunt because those guys are still going at 100%. I love the way Stefanski is using them. He's using them like Tito used bullpen pitchers in the playoffs in 2016. In one, out one, in one, and get your rest and make sure that you're ready when it's go time. And the Browns' run game in the fourth quarter, particularly Nick Chubb, it's been phenomenal. It's just Chubb's averaging a ridiculous, it's like 16 yards a carry in the fourth quarter. It's something that out of this world. And the sample size now, Dino's big enough that that's not an anomaly. That's what they are. The only thing I love what they're doing with these guys. And I'm going to nitpick here because that's what 8-3 teams and their fan bases do. Okay. Because you're not, now you're thinking, okay, playoffs and let's see what happens. They're not going to beat the Chiefs. They're not going to likely beat the Steelers. They're not going to a Super Bowl, but we want it to be interesting. We don't want to be embarrassed when we get to the playoffs. So I'm going to nitpick. Number one, Baker Mayfield absolutely must get better with the red zone throws. He missed 2 open receivers last week and turned 7 points into none.
Yes.
He missed 2 open receivers in yesterday's game that took 4 points off the board because it should have been 7. They settled for the kick. You can do that and get away with it against the Texans. You can do that and get away with that against the Jags. You leave 7 or 4 points on the field here or there against the Ravens, the Titans, the Steelers, the Chiefs, party over. They will annihilate you if you can't convert when you get inside the red zone. And I'm not sure what it is. To me, just thumbnail assessment, armchair quarterbacking, it seems like he needs to slow everything down when he gets into the red zone. His feet start churning a little too much. He's throwing the ball a little too hard and high, and he's just a little amped up. Understandable. We forget he's still just a third-year guy. Mm-hmm. He said yesterday in a tweet, he's got to get better. He will get better. He knows that. Nobody needs to tell him. The worst throw of the day, based on circumstance and execution, was the 3rd down and 1 when Hunt was wide open and Baker threw it too hard and too far behind him. It's not a catchable ball. It would have been a tremendous catch should Hunt. Now, here's the execution of that play. It's easy for me to sit here. I don't have anybody chasing me. That's a very simple throw that Baker knows he can complete 100 times out of 100 in practice. But when things start to churn up in the heat of the moment, you get that once in a while. Now, I also have to point out, 4th straight game, no pick.
Yes.
Okay. And suddenly now we're through 11 and those 7 picks. That looks pretty good. Now he's way down in the league in attempts. I think he's 26th or 27th in the league in attempts. So the interceptions should be down near the bottom. And they are. That's a good thing. That's showing maturation. Instead of forcing a ball in a window, he's throwing it out of bounds or he's running, whatever. He made some unbelievable throws yesterday on third down, critical third downs. One that comes to mind is the third and long to Jarvis Landry. He had another one to Hodge that was the window was it was unbelievable how small it is. So we know he's capable of doing it. He just needs to be able to repeat it at a higher percentage. I think he has one of the lowest completion percentages in the NFL. He's around 60%. I believe that puts him 30th, somewhere in there, 30th, 29th. So he's got to complete more passes. I think we know from his days at Oklahoma, he's wildly accurate. He can do it. So that's my first nitpick. Baker's got to be better. Secondly, and I hesitate to do this because how do you pick fault at an 8-3 rookie coach? But I just think that the sequence on the turnover on downs, the play calling there wasn't great. It's 2nd and 2. You run the ball and you appear to get the first down. Looked to me like they marked it way back. Yeah. Then they challenged, they won the challenge, but they still made the ball short of the first down, the line to gain, which I thought was a bad spot. I went back on DVR, looked at it 30 times. Yeah. That football crossed the line to gain. I don't know what they were looking at. I don't know how they spotted the ball where they did. It was a terrible spot. That's one. Okay, so you got to overcome that. Now, you know what to do, okay? You know what to do, and you inexplicably throw the ball on the pass that was behind Hunt, incomplete, 4th and inches. Why is Nick Chubb not getting that carry?
I don't understand. I don't understand that, and I didn't understand in that.
Why not
situation.
Kick the field goal? Kick the field goal there.
Kick the field goal.
Make it an 11-point game. Yeah, I don't get it. So, this is all, again, we have the hindsight, we have the benefit of the results. And hindsight is 20/20 once you have the benefit of the results, knowing how it, look, if Baker completes that pass, nobody's questioning that play call. Nobody. Right. But I just didn't like it at the time. When I saw him roll, I thought, why are we throwing the ball? Right. And so it's incomplete. Now you've got to go for it on 4th down, or you got to run it on 4th down if that's what you're going to do. And by the way, the clock is also an issue. There's like 5:45 to go when they threw that pass. Why would you give them a free clock stoppage?
That's it.
And it doesn't make sense to throw the ball anyhow. You've got the number 1 running back in the NFL. Feed Chubb on 3rd and short and 4th and short, and the game's over. The game is over. You take another 2 minutes off the clock. Even if the drive stalls, you kick the field goal. Now it's an 11-point game with 3 minutes to go. Yep. So and I think Stefanski knows that. I think, when he assesses his own performance after the game, he's smart enough to know what you should do in those situations. Then I'm watching last night, the Chiefs game and the Patriots. Mm-hmm. And this is nuts. I mean, but nobody does this but Andy Reid. The Chiefs are trying to run out the clock on a game that was already put to bed. It was 27-10, then it's 27-17, then it's 27-24. And all of a sudden it's a game and the Chiefs need a first down to take a couple of knees. And what does Andy Reid do? He throws it on 3rd down, incomplete. He throws it on 4th down and picks up the first down. And my jaw is on the floor. Like, why are you doing that? And, there's a school of thought that whenever the defense thinks they know what you're going to do, the test scenario is you're going to perform better if you call a play that's not into their hand. So clearly Tampa Bay's defense is thinking they're going to run the ball, and they don't, and they complete the 4th and long. It was stunning, to be honest with you. And that's okay if you've got Tyreek Hill and you've got, Patrick Mahomes. And we've got guys that I think, on the wide receiver core, I think Jarvis Landry is pretty damn good and in that Tyreek Hill conversation, but he's not Tyreek Hill. And you just hand over the whole ball game to Patrick Mahomes on that fourth down play. If they don't pick it up, you give Brady and the Bucks enough time to try to go down and kick a game-time field goal or score a game-winning touchdown. So as much as I disagree with those play calls, Andy Reid makes them work and nobody questions them.
Correct.
But if that ball, which by the way was just narrowly missed the Buccaneers defender's hands, almost batted down. If that ball's batted down, and Tom does what Tom has done for 20-some years, everybody and their mothers are questioning Andy Reid this morning. So again, it's the benefit of the results after the play. For me, when you've got Chubb and you've got Hunt and you've got that much for a first down, that's easy. That's easy. Guys, I trust you. Line, you need push. Let's go get that 6 inches and put a dub up. It's that simple. Don't get cute. Don't throw the ball. When you got a chance to go up 2 scores that late in the game, the book tells you always do it. You just do it.
Right.
And I think Cody Parkey is to the point now, Dino, where he's earned the respect and the trust of the coaches to go out there and make that kick. He's been, knock on wood, he's been tremendous. And that's a very makeable, I think they're on the 22-yard line. So you've got a 39-yard try, make it an 11-point game, and then make the other team beat you. Make them march the field and score a touchdown, which, by the way, they did in no time. But now they've got to either execute an onside kick, which they tried and didn't execute. They failed on the 2-point conversion. Kudos to the Browns defense of really standing up when they needed to, because there were very few plays yesterday that the Jags ran that didn't get at least 2 yards.
Yes.
Go look at the play log. There were very few plays that didn't get at least 2 yards. But the 2 biggest ones were the 2-point conversions, and the Browns defense stood up.
Yeah. By the way, why is Doug Marrone going for 2 earlier in that half?
Has he been fired yet? Is he out yet?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know that. Yeah, Caldwell's out. I mean, I'm waiting for the call. Well,
you don't fire the general manager and not fire the coach in that situation. And by the way,
it's what the Lions did.
Right. If you're going to sweep them, get rid of them.
Right.
Start all over. That's what the Browns did with Freddie and Dorsey. So Marrone, I don't know what Marrone's thinking. I don't know what. First of all, when he went for 2 early, the game is far too early to start chasing points.
Correct.
He had in that game a 3-point lead, and he took the point off the board to get greedy for 1 extra point. Well, that point ended up changing the entire dynamics of the football game, because if they leave that point on the board, they don't need to try a 2-point conversion at the end. They kick an extra point to tie the football game. So, chasing that extra point early, particularly when the extra point was good and you took it off the board for 1 yard, your offense has been horrible this year on 4th down. If I'm a Jags fan and they're not firing Marrone, I don't think I can watch another game or support that product, because he just and here's the thing, Dino. I don't think they're a horrible football team.
No,
I don't.
No.
I mean, they're a much better 1-10 team than you would expect a 1-10 team to be. Look at the results. They opened the season with the win against the Colts.
Right.
Then they lost. Yesterday's loss was their 4th by 4 points or less. And I went back and looked at the game stories for all of the previous games. They easily could have won all 4 of those. Give them 4 of those wins. And now instead of 1-10, you're 5-6. You're still out of the discussion, but you're 5-6 and you're not firing your general manager and your head coach. They've turned those wins into losses because the coaching's pretty bad.
Right.
And by the way, we recognize bad coaching when we see it. We've seen enough of it. That game was something 5 years ago. That would have been a Browns way to lose.
Correct.
Let's chase a point here or there.
Yep.
Let's do this, make some dumb calls. And they fired the GM over it. Hell, I mean, the only thing I can think of was the owner told the GM, fire the coach, and he said no. That's the only thing I can think of. So today, the coach, later today, the coach will fall. I could be wrong, but usually that's how those things go down.
Yeah, because it's an odd time. Like you said, to fire one and not the other at this stage of the game, it's kind of strange. Before I let you go, Jay, Titans this Sunday. We'll wait and see, obviously, if the Browns can get some players back off of the COVID reserve list and back from injury. But I just think, look, the Titans came into First Energy Stadium last year on the season opener and frankly embarrassed the Browns. The Browns
no
played
question.
terrible. 18 penalties. I mean, Derrick Henry ran over them, through them, around them. Pride enough should get you charged up for this game, let alone the fact that it's a pivotal playoff type matchup this weekend.
Couldn't agree more. If they're not thinking about that opening day beatdown that Tennessee applied to the Browns, and by the way, for all intents and purposes, and I remember walking out of the stadium last year after that game. I was with my brother who came in from Nashville. He's a Browns fan, but he flew in from Nashville. We watched the game together. I was with my son and a good friend of mine. And I remember saying to all of them, guys, this is going to sound like hyperbole. I can be prone to do that once in a while. I worked with Skip Bayless for 10 years. I can be pushed to making a hyperbolic statement.
Yes.
And I prefaced my comment that way, Dino. But as we're walking out of the stadium, and the game was still going on, by the way, I couldn't even watch any more of it. They'd clearly quit. I told my son, my brother, and my buddy, guys, I know you're going to bash me for what I'm about to say, and it does fall into the school of hyperbole, but our season's over. Oh, come on, we're 0-1. Come on, it's one game. And I said, it's one game, but here's the drill, guys. Here's the drill. When was the last time August was filled in Cleveland with talk of a Super Bowl? Let me help you with that. 1989? Maybe?
Yes.
Maybe?
Yes, or 95. The year before.
Now, that was 30 years from 2019. Mm-hmm. So maybe it was 89. We were saying, hey, maybe next year we can get over on Denver. Maybe. So the entire month of August is filled with Super Bowl talk. You got this kind of Joe six-pack, Cleveland everyman, the beer belly, the, off-the-cuff comments. The guy was made for Cleveland. Mm-hmm. The fan base is rallying him around him. You've got these unbelievable picks and, Baker and Garrett, and now you've got OBJ, and you remember how high the expectations were.
Sky.
And they came out of the tunnel. They take the opening drive. Boom. And after that, the effort disappeared. It was like the cork's out of the bottle, and that's all the energy you have. And now you can't manufacture energy once the cork is out. It's done. And I felt like, is this some kind of a joke? I watched possession after possession where the defense looked flat, the offense going 3 and out and seemingly oblivious to the boos and people not caring. And it was just the whole picture in total. I said, guys, our season's over. First of all, that team's not very good. They're not talking about Tennessee. I was talking about the Browns. I go, we're not very good. Now, we may improve, and you may start to see the guys digest the offense a little bit. But I noticed right away the play calling was completely different than it was at the end of 2018 when Freddie was playing with house money. All of a sudden, the play calling got out of rhythm. The effort and energy wasn't there. And I said, based on what I just saw, that team quit. That's the micro. In the macro, they're going to quit on the season.
Right.
And you look ahead at the schedule last year, the schedule to start was just brutal. And I said, we're going to be 1-4, and our season's going to be over. And everybody's going to look around like, what the hell happened? So I think Tennessee did that to the Browns. Now, the Browns weren't very good, but I just think that if the Browns could have found a way to beat Tennessee in that opener, perhaps the whole season unfolds differently. So for all the guys that were on that roster and that can have short memories when they want to, but long memories otherwise, they've got to remember what that Tennessee team did to them. And now they can wreck their season because, Tennessee isn't a lock for the playoffs either. So the winner of this game has a big inside track at the playoffs. It's almost a playoff game, Dino. It almost is.
Like that. It really feels like that to me. Because like you said, you beat either Tennessee, Baltimore, or Pittsburgh and hold serve on the New Yorks. They're
11-5. And they're in.
Yeah. Right.
And I think, for the Titans, obviously they're battling the Colts for the division lead, but you don't want it to come down to not winning the division or then missing the playoffs. Right. And I don't know. I think the second place team in the South will get a bid. I do. I believe that. But
I agree.
There's no guarantees. And if Tennessee's smart, and I know Mike Vrabel very well, longtime personal friend of mine, I can promise you this. His guys are going to be ready.
Yeah.
His guys will be ready. And remember, this is a team that last year beat the Ravens in the playoffs. They beat the Patriots in the playoffs. And if things had fallen a little differently, they could have beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs, and it could have been them in the Super Bowl. So Stefanski better do the best job that he's done all year in preparing these guys for a big game and then calling and executing the perfect game plan and see what happens.
Yeah, take your chances. Take your chances. Let's do it. All right, my friend. Hey, December is calling. Meaningful football in December. It's high time for that, my friend.
Wait, you said we're 8-3?
8-3. Yes. Not a techie error. I'm saying 8-3. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Right there, buddy. Right there, man.
Heartland of America, baby.
Yeah, we got to close the deal here and get this team into the playoffs.
Absolutely. All right, my friend. I appreciate it. We'll see you at 5 on What's New, and
always
we'll
good.
look forward to doing this again next week.
All right, Dino.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. After further review, we're right here on WKYC.com. All right. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
All right, brother. Hopefully we're talking about 9-3 next week.
You got it, man. I'll see you.
See you, man.